It's time to get your head out of your ass and start creating a life of no regrets. Whether you want to lose weight, get rich, or manifest a hot threesome on the beach, you're gonna want to turn this up. This is Goals, Grit, and some woo-woo shit with your host, best-selling author and professional butt kicker, Una Duncan.
Well, hello and welcome to the 100th episode of Goals, Grit, and some woo-woo shit. I'm your host, Una Duncan. And dude, I remember when I was first starting the show and I reached out to my first couple of guests and one of them got back to me, their team got back to me and said that that particular person never appears on podcasts that have less than 100 episodes because they're not real podcasts yet. They said to get in touch after I had 100 podcasts. And I was like, one, rude. Two, 100 podcast episodes? Like, that's just insane. That sounded like a big, extreme, unthinkable number, like Dr. Evil going $1 million. Or, when people talk about the infinity of space. And, I'm really humble because I'm comparing my podcast to the infinity of space. But let's be honest. I mean, that's how overwhelming big goals can feel sometimes. And the other day, I was reminded of the book Bird by the awesome writer Anne Lamott. So the title is inspired by a piece of advice that Anne's father gave her brother when he was feeling overwhelmed by a big school project. Her brother had to write a report on birds, but he procrastinated and it was overdue and he was freaking out. And her father sat down beside her brother and said, "Bird by bird, buddy, just take it bird by bird." So with this, my 100th bird, I wanted to take my own advice and have a little celebration of this milestone. I mentioned this in an early episode, but it's really easy to let milestones pass by because when you have big goals, they happen so incrementally that you get to your milestone and it kind of doesn't feel like a big deal because it's just your normal present. And at this point, you're usually just itching to get to the next stage. Like last night, I was at a meeting of an amazing group on our island. My neighbor started this, actually. Hi, Jocelyn. It's called the Financial Femmes, and this is where women get together to just talk about personal finance goals. Amazing, right? And of course, most of the conversation was how to get ahead, how to make more money, how to save more money. And obviously, I love talking about growth and expansion in any area. But it's also important to acknowledge how far we've come. And I asked them, how many of you, just out of curiosity, have a household income now that if you told your 20-year-old self, they would have been like, "Wow, I'm rich." And most of them acknowledged, yeah, that's true. And most of them also said, and it still feels inadequate. And so, yes, of course, there's inflation and families, et cetera, et cetera. But the truth is, I've researched this at every income level from 300,000 a year to 30 million a year. Studies show that pretty much everyone thinks that they just need 20% more to feel like really content. My husband is a sailor, and apparently in the sailing community, this is called 2-foot-itis. Every sailor thinks they need to upgrade to a boat that's just 2 feet bigger. So I certainly see this moving target syndrome of perpetual discontent with my fitness clients. So I'll have a client who lost like the 40 pounds that they've been trying to lose since the frickin' millennium. And they are pleased. They're totally pleased, but they're not too pleased. Like they don't want to let themselves off the hook because now they just feel like there's a little bit of loose skin or maybe, I want to tone up my arms a little bit. And again, I'm not saying that they shouldn't go for the next goal. What I am saying is that if you don't celebrate the milestones you've achieved, then you're just signing yourself up for a life of constant striving and not a lot of joy. So here's the first time I really got this. So I was in Tony Robbins' mastermind group in like 2019, 2020, and I went to all of his events. And at every event, not everyone, most of the events, there's usually like a physical challenge that emphasizes the idea of mind over matter, of the importance of mindset. If you control your emotional state and your focus and your intention, you can accomplish anything. So like, karate chopping through a board, or you've probably already heard of the fire walk, where you walk on a bed of coals, hot coals. And, I actually have a story about that. Okay. So, the first time I went to a Tony Robbins event. I went with my now husband, then boyfriend, Dylan. And this is probably in 2006 or something like that. And the whole event, they're pumping you up for the fire walk. You were supposed to turn to the person next to you and be like, "You're going to walk on fire tonight, and so am I." And we got trained on how to do it. So this is how you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to look up at the sky, not at the coals. And you're supposed to walk across calmly and repeat to yourself out loud, cool moss, cool moss, cool moss. Like I'm walking on cool moss. Okay. So we get outside to the big pits of hot coals. And we're all there cheering each other on. And Dylan and I are in line. And I go first. And I walk across. And I'm looking up at the sky. And I'm going, cool moss, cool moss, cool moss. And when I get to the end, there's people there to catch you and immediately pour water on your feet. It was actually kind of more of a real thing than we thought. Like, Dylan and I had spent the day going, you're going to walk on fire tonight. And so am I, to strangers. But together we're like, obviously no one's going to walk on fucking fire. Liability, nightmare, whatever. But anyway, we get there and it's kind of real, actually. So I get across and I'm jumping up and down and everyone's woo. And I did it. And I turn around to face Dylan, who's now at the front. And I'm like, okay, baby, you got this. You got this. And the Tony Robbins people are like, oh, just hold on 1 second. And they go and they put fresh coals on, like white hot. And even I was like, oh, shit. And I see Dylan's face go, oh, God. But it's his turn. So he lurches onto the coals, staring at his feet the whole time and going, fuck, shit, fuck. And then they catch him and they pour the water on his feet and they were freaking burnt. So to this day, I tease Dylan by saying, it's because he didn't say cool moss. And he replies, it's because they put down white hot fucking coals. Anyway, it's an ongoing friendly debate in our relationship. Feel free to weigh in, by the way, if you want to dive into this part of our relationship. You just hit the speak pipe button in the show notes and let me know what you think. Anyway, okay, but let me get to the relevant Tony Robbins challenge. So for this one, we got put into these harnesses and there was someone belaying you. But what we had to do is we had to climb a telephone pole. It had rungs on it, but it was as tall and the same diameter as a real telephone pole. And then when you climb to the top, and then when you get to the top, you are supposed to go from climbing it. So just picture how hard this is, to standing on top of the telephone pole. So picture how hard you get to the top, and then somehow you have to get your foot on top of the pole and then get yourself to a standing position. And then you're supposed to stand on a telephone pole. I'm not kidding about this. And you're supposed to do a little celebration dance. And then you're supposed to leap off the pole towards a trapeze and grab it. And then the trapeze gets lowered down to the ground. So like I said, you're in a harness. You're not really in danger, but it's super freaky. You don't feel supported. Okay. So, and I saw this and I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, because I found these challenges kind of gimmicky and annoying and not like particularly empowering and kind of a time suck. I just wanted to get the content I wanted to get the lessons from the workshops. Okay. So when they asked, okay, who wants to go first? I was like, okay, I'll do it. Because I just wanted to get it over with. So I scamper up the pole and I don't love heights, but I know that logically I'm harnessed. So let's just fucking do it. So I get to the top and I'm so awkward, trying to get my leg up and I smash my crotch at the side of the pole and I'm trying to roll on top or something. Keep in mind, there's hundreds of spectators as well. And I finally get to the standing position and I'm like, where's the fucking trapeze? And so I see it and I jump for it and I grasp it for maybe a second and then my grip fails and the harness kicks in and I'm slowly lowered down. And all the people are so nice and they applaud and I'm just happy it's over. And then later, someone said, oh my God, wasn't it an incredible view from the top of the pole? You could see all the way to the ocean. We were in Tenerife, Spain. And I was like, oh, I didn't notice the view at all. And then later, the workshop facilitator was talking about how different people approach the pole exercise and how you do one thing is how you do everything. So in my case, first, I charged right on in because I just wanted to get it over with. If I had held back and maybe watched a few people go first, I probably would have gained some really valuable insights on how to navigate that really awkward transition at the top. And then when I got to the top, not only did I not do the little celebration dance we were supposed to do, I didn't even take a second to look around and have a moment of being like, look at me. I'm standing on top of a telephone pole that I just climbed and I'm in Spain and there's the ocean. None of that happens every day. Instead, I was just like, okay, well, that's done. Moving on. Where's the stupid trapeze? Next challenge. Let's get this over with. So this episode is me correcting myself and having a little moment to acknowledge the milestone. And I wanted to do that by asking you, What were some of your favorite takeaways from the last 100 episodes of the show so far? And in highlighting those, I'm kind of hoping that this episode will serve as a kind of best of sampler. So given my audience is a lot of current and former fitness clients, there was obviously a lot of love for the health related content. In fact, the episode with by far the most downloads so far is episode 20, What to Do When You're Fat. And I made this episode in response to all the times that I'll hear from like an old friend from university or high school or something, and they'll send me a text or a DM on social and it'll say, dude, I'm fucking fat. What do I do? So here's a snippet from that episode. 1, do not freak the fuck out. Here's what freaking out looks like. Well, first of all, it's going around announcing to everyone that you're fat now. And that includes complaining to your spouse and your friends, posting in online forums going, oh my God, I'm so fat, I don't know what to do. Showing up to brunch. And when the girls say, oh my God, your blazer, you look amazing. You say, oh, thanks. I'm using it to cover my rolls. Can you believe I've gained 10 pounds? Do you really want to go around creating and reinforcing that new identity? Never mind that other people probably will not notice until you point it out. You're also repeating a mantra of a new identity of being fat in your head. Quit it. Freaking out can also look like Googling sudden weight gain female age 56 or whatever. That is about as smart as Googling symptoms, fatigue, headache, inability to concentrate. You're going to spend 10 minutes before you conclude that you obviously consumed a brain-eating parasite. Or in this case, you are going to convince yourself that you definitely have an underactive thyroid, adrenal failure, screwed up hormones, and a menopausal pooch that won't go away unless you buy some shit that you are going to be very susceptible to buying in that moment of freaking out. By all means, if you, in your calmest and least triggered moments, think that you might have a health concern, go get it checked out. But I will say that after dealing with thousands of people who come into my programs thinking something's wrong with them, it's pretty much always just that they weren't quite as on top of their healthy habits as they thought they were. And dude, that's okay. Letting your habits slip, like snacking at night or having a chocolate croissant ritual with your morning coffee or skipping your workouts, is not like evil. It might not be the most optimal choice for you to feel good, but it's not like you're drowning baby kittens in a river. Let's get some perspective here. There were also a lot of votes for the episode 46, How to Get Jennifer Aniston's Body. Here's one part that really stuck out for my listener, Jacqueline. And here's the other thing. When I told you that story about someone messaging me and saying they want Jennifer Aniston's body, what was your reaction? Maybe it was something like, yeah, fucking right, who doesn't? But what would be your reaction if you heard about someone going to a plastic surgeon and saying, I want Jennifer Aniston's face? Like, to me, that feels different. That makes me a little uncomfortable. It feels kind of pathological. Why would you want someone else's face? It seems so sad that someone would hate their own face so much that they'd want to obliterate it to look like someone else's. In the whole history of the world, no one has ever had your face, and you want to get rid of it for someone else's? But we say that kind of shit all the fucking time about our bodies. In the whole history of the world, no one has ever had exactly your body. But instead of celebrating that and seeing that as evidence of awesome, fascinating human diversity, we see our bodies as a series of defects that didn't get the Jennifer Aniston mold. I also had some health-related guests that you loved. We got a lot of votes for episode 26, where Janet Whalen tells you how to go the fuck to sleep. Listener Angie had this to say.
With all of the cool stuff that we can track with all of those fitness wearables, Apple Watch, Fitbit, and whatnot, I was finding it very easy to get caught up in some of the data. And the sleep episode where the guest mentioned that there really isn't any good that comes out of wearing a fitness tracker to track sleep, because you can't do anything with that information. You know, you willing yourself to sleep better is not going to happen. And so the sleep data that I had been getting and all it was doing was bumming me out. So I stopped wearing a fitness tracker to sleep. And tried other things to help my sleep quality, like meditating and things like that. But it was quite empowering to say, hey, I can ignore that sleep data because it doesn't mean a darn thing. Love your podcast and can't wait for the next 100.
And speaking of wearable technology, we also got a listener shout out for Amanda Jefferson. She's our digital decluttering queen. And she taught listener Kelly that you can press the button on the side of your Apple Watch and tell it to add anything to your grocery list. And that grocery list can be shared with other people. And it's just little tiny things like that that can just make your life work so much more smoothly. And Amanda gives so many amazing tips on how to live a more digitally streamlined life. She has 2 episodes, 39 and 87. Now, on the subject of groceries and cooking, listener Heidi loved episode 7 with Brigitte Gem on how not to hate cooking. The biggest takeaway for her was that there are 5 basic meal types. And if you lean into those, then you can mix and match and simplify your meal prep so much. I also heard from so many listeners who, because of that episode, now see wearing an apron as wearing a superhero cape backwards. Just so cool. Listener Lisa Horn loved episode 51 with Nimai Delgado and said it completely changed her perspective. So Nimai is the trainer from the documentary The Game Changers. He's a world champion bodybuilder and a vegan. Now, don't worry. I start the interview by asking him, where on earth does he get his protein? Here's his answer.
I always answer this question by stating that most people don't understand how much protein they actually need. So I think whenever people ask this question, they assume that I consume an absorbent amount of protein per day. Let me just start off by saying that my target for protein on a daily basis is around 150 grams per day. And just to give you more context, I weigh like about 180 to 185 on a good day. And I get that easily through my tofu, my tempeh, lentils, protein powder, sprouts, oatmeal, everything else, pasta, bean pastas. I post a lot of my meals online just so people can see that you don't have to have a huge chunk of meat on your plate in order to have protein. Like, I look at the totality of my plate and see that I'm getting 10 grams here, 10 grams here, 10 grams here, and, multiply that by 4 or 5 meals per day. And, you can hit that 150 target pretty easily. Most of the time I actually exceed it.
And the final health episode that I'll mention, because it had a huge impact on a lot of listeners, is episode 44, Back Away from the Booze, with Rory Fairbairns. He is the founder of 1 Year No Beer. This is one episode that people always tell me that they reported that they shared it with a lot of their friends. So check out how he answered this question. Well, right now, when I Google you, the quote that comes up all the time is, alcohol is holding you back. And you've explained a million reasons why that's true. But what I think a lot of people listening might be wondering, yeah, but what about for me? Because I only drink a glass or 2 of wine a week. Surely that's not doing anything. Can you answer that?
Yeah, I can. And again, I think that, first of all, the first thing is just removing that on its own will have a significant impact on you, right? And if it's that easy, why not give it a shot? I always have this thing now, if you feel like you need something, then you should try doing without it, because I think in there you're going to find massive amounts of growth. And so if you feel like you are relying on something, and this goes for coffee and various things, don't worry, we'll get onto caffeine later. We don't want to rush everyone. So I think that's the first thing there. The second thing is that a lot of people, I have people, all walks of life, all types of drinkers, light drinkers, social drinkers, binge drinkers, heavy drinkers, daily drinkers, coming into our program. And what we're saying is, I often say to people, look, I don't care if you drink. I don't care if you drink during the program. That is irrelevant. It's not relevant to the work that we are doing, because I'm going to change how you view this piece. Here's an example. If I said to you, Una, look, I will give you £1,000, £10,000. If you, let's say £100,000, let's make it meaningful. I'll give you £100,000 if you can run a 5K under 20 minutes. You could go out and do it, right?
Yeah,
you could go out and do it. And if you wanted to get it done and guarantee success, you'd probably go and hire a coach. You would probably go and study it and learn all about it. You would get yourself some new kit. You would invest in it. And you would know that no doubt in your mind, you could get there. You could get there. That's in your mind. That is what I'm trying to tell you about everyone's relationship with alcohol. It doesn't matter how toxic you think it is. I'm telling you that you can have a take it or leave it relationship with alcohol. The question mark is, what is the work for you to do, right? If you are severely obese, right, and I'm telling you to go and run a 5K under 20, well, that's going to be a big journey, right? There's a lot of discovery and time taken over that. But this is just about the question for you about where you are with your relationship with alcohol.
All right, my friends, it is time to announce the winners of the 100th podcast episode Awesome Giveaway. Now, before I announce the names, I just want to thank everyone for taking the time to enter and sharing about the show. Dude, I can't tell you how much fun it was to see all of your submissions, and it was so great to get tagged in all your shares and see the episodes that had the biggest impact on you. I can't thank you enough for all of your support of me and this show. Okay, drum roll, please. For the book bundle, a collection of some of the best-selling books that we have featured on this podcast, the winner is Patricia Gagnon. Patricia Gagnon. And winner of the 28-day transformation. This is my awesome program that guarantees visible, measurable fitness results in 28 days. The strength building, fat loss, fitness, and nutrition program that 87% of participants have said it changed their life. The winner of that awesome prize is Priya Mathur. Priya Mathur. And the winner of the digital decluttering session with Amanda Jefferson, where she will get with you one-on-one and help you clean up your email, your iCloud services, your pictures, your last passwords, whatever's driving you nuts. The winner of that awesome prize is Joy Janipin. Joy Janipin. Congratulations. And the winner of the one-on-one style session with the awesome Janine Jacob, where she will get with you. And I have done this. It's so much fun. You get to try on your clothes. You get to tell her what's working, what's not working. She says, you try on this with that. And then you leave with this whole new wardrobe that you had no clue existed in your closet. The winner of that awesome prize is Pamela Dixon. Pamela Dixon, congratulations. And finally, the winner of the one-on-one coaching session with yours truly, where we will get together and we will dig into whatever your goals are, and we will help you get to the grit to push through the hard stuff that's getting in the way of you achieving all of your awesome goals. And we will apply all of the woo-woo mindset stuff as well as brass tack strategies. You are going to leave with a plan. The winner of that awesome prize is Meg Bickford Fry. Meg Bickford Fry, I'm so excited to work with you. Oh my gosh, you guys. So if you just heard your name, big congratulations. You should expect an email from the Fit Feels Good team. And again, to everyone who submitted an entry, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. And back to the show. I was also really interested to note that a lot of the most popular episodes had to do with parenting. So many people mentioned episode 80, Mental Load Meltdown with Sam Kelly. Here's what listener Stephanie had to say about that.
Hey, Una, the podcast that really struck a chord with me was the mental load meltdown, the notice and do lesson. I've repeated this over and over in my home since I heard that message. Like, if you notice something needs to be picked up, cleaned up, swept up, please just do it. You don't need my permission or me hollering at you to do it. I wish I would have heard this lesson and the big 3 lesson when my kids were small. They're teenagers now. But I have sat them down and talked to them about it anyway. Maybe it will help them have a more helpful dynamic in their homes one day. Thanks for that.
And listener Jennifer had a similar reaction.
I have enjoyed so many of these episodes in your podcast, Una, but the one that sticks out to me the most that has truly had an impact in my daily life is episode 80 with Sam Kelly. So Sam talks about how moms can help distribute some of the work in the house. And it was a true wake-up call. And I actually had the conversation she talks about in the episode with my family, like we were on a basketball team, and that mom is VIP and mom is exhausted. And I really need to pass the ball to somebody else sometimes. That really resonated with them. Now I've got my 13-year-old saying he did his notice and do, and I am getting more help around the house, which has truly made a huge difference in my stress and my well-being. So thank you for having Sam on, and just keep doing the good work.
And listener Jen mentioned episode 28 with Dana Abraham about overcoming challenging parenting moments, and specifically the part where she says this.
You feel like you can't help. And so when we can start with the parent, we can ground ourselves and we can shift our own beliefs and our own thoughts first. We can only control ourselves. But when we can do that, then it makes it so much easier to be that safe place for our kids, to provide empathy and to provide that connection that our kids so desperately need.
There's also been a lot of love for the episodes on money and personal finance. In episode 38, financial planner Shannon Simmons tells us how to make no regret financial decisions. Take this one, for example. How do you help people come to a decision that they are at peace with, that they know was the right decision when it comes to these things?
Yeah, that's the whole word of no regrets. So I obviously can't make decisions for people, but what I can do is help outline what you can do right now while you're wading through the uncertainty, so that future you looks back and says, you know what? I wouldn't do it any other way. And so I started to notice over the years, again, I've seen people's lives play out now. So it's really, I couldn't have written this book even like 5-6 years ago. It's really just been like watching people live. And sometimes we make good decisions with bad outcomes.
That was going to be my next
question.
Mean it. Yeah, I thought that was
doesn't mean it was a bad decision. It doesn't mean it was a bad decision. However, because we didn't get the outcome we wanted, quit our job, went back to school, the whole thing blew up, can't get a job, wish I never did it. Right? So, okay, that was good decisions, bad outcome. How do you look back on that and not regret it? And so I started to notice between all the people who made decisions and they didn't work out, there was a group of people who still have hope for the future. And they were like, good decision, bad outcome. And there was another group of people who were like, I'm the worst. I regret that. How could I have done that? And they live with this deep regret. And so in studying those people, I realized it was really important, because those people, without the hope for the future and without trusting their ability to make good decisions in hard times, live with daily anxiety that something bad is going to happen to them, because they don't actually trust themselves to make good decisions again going forward. So the people that were there in that group often made panic-based decisions. So like reactive, right? I'm going to rage quit. I'm so angry at this person. I'm just going to do this thing. I'm going to, very reactive, panic-based decisions. Classic also is like, during the pandemic, this will never end. I'm going to like sell everything and move. Some people that was a great decision. Some people that was a horrible decision. It depends on the thing. So a reactionary decision. And the other thing is like making sure that they're making decisions that are aligned with their value, their deciding values, just for them, not other people, not what the news is saying, just for them. And then ultimately like setting up boundaries financially. So like, where's the like go, no go lines that you don't end up regretting this down the road, right? Like how much money can you spend to do this that you don't look back with regret? How much other things in your life you're going to have to give up in order to do this. So all I do is map it out for people so that it's a mindful choice, so that no matter how it turns out, you can look back and say, that was a good decision, even if it was a bad outcome.
And the recent episode 93 with money expert Rachel Rogers was so impactful that her story about Broke Boo stopped me in my tracks. And apparently it had the same effect on listener Tula. Here's me telling the story. So basically, Broke Boo gets up in the morning. She's so good. She always gets up at exactly, 5 o'clock or whatever, because she's got to walk her dog. And then she gets her kids' lunches. And then she does her career. And she's divorced, but she's got a really good relationship with her ex. They never get into arguments about custody. Yes. And I'm forgetting a whole bunch of other things. But then when Rachel, she was like, yeah, no, Broke Boo, like, hire a fucking dog walker. So, she really wants a personal trainer, but she can't afford it.
Yeah.
I forget the other things, but I was like, holy shit. Yeah. Hire a dog walker, teach your kids to make their own damn lunches. Yeah. Tell your ex to fucking pull some weight around here. Oh yeah. She drives her kids everywhere. Yeah. And I was like, oh my gosh. Yeah. She does seem like she's first in her business. She's doing really well in her career, blah, blah, blah. But she's also not kind of getting paid as much. Anyway, there was a million examples.
Right. Because she had been promoted but then they never gave her the money to go with the promotion. And it's 6 months later and she's still waiting and not asking for it. Right. So, and same thing. The reason why she gets along so well with her ex, because she, accepts his bullshit and he doesn't pull his weight and she allows it. You know what I mean? Yes. Same thing with the dog. I was just like, and that's the thing. And that's exactly why I wrote it that way, because I really wanted women to see that, I know you feel like maybe you are doing well, right? You are doing a lot of amazing things and things could be better. And here's why you don't have the things that you really want, is because this lack of boundaries, this accommodating everyone, this people pleasing, we're trained to do it. I don't blame anyone, because we are literally this is how we are, trained by society. We're raised this way, to show up and behave a certain way and accommodate everyone and take care of everyone. And no one is required to take care of us, and we don't even have the space to take care of ourselves the way that we want to, right? She didn't have the money to get the trainer that she wanted, for example. She didn't have the free time that she wanted. Whereas Rich Boo was she's also divorced. And she's like, guess what? Take these kids when it's your turn, because I need to have my free time. Things need to be scheduled in advance. Y'all can make your own lunches. There's a dog walker coming. I got a side hustle where I'm making 6 figures just in my side hustle, right?
And here's what Tula had to say.
Hi, Una. Long-time listener, first-time caller. I just listened to episode 93 with Rachel Rogers, and I am shook. It really kind of rattled me right to my core. And the moment that you talked about that you stopped running in the forest, because I'm also that boo that looks like she's got it all together and then is also, really not maximizing her wealth potential. And life's felt so crazy and disorganized lately. And I keep wandering around being like, how do I get it all done? How do I get it all done? And that moment for me was like, you're not going to get it all done. So stop pretending like you are and focus on what you absolutely need to do. So that moment of clarity, which so often comes in your podcasts, was a real banger for me. And thank you to you and Rachel for that.
So as you can hear in so many of these examples, it's about health, it's about wealth, it's about parenting and all the things. But really, what it comes down to is all the woo-woo mindset stuff. So many people mentioned episode 60, The Secret to Coaching Your Damn Self, where I talk about the law of attraction and how it really works and how your thoughts do manifest reality, but in a really practical way. Here's a snippet from that episode. So let's do another one, because I know you probably don't believe me yet. Let's do another one. Circumstance. Your partner has not initiated sex for 2 months. Thought. They might be having an affair. Feeling. Suspicious and insecure. So when you have those feelings, what are your actions? Well, you probably question your partner about everywhere they're going. You might give off subtle kind of hostile vibes. You might guilt them about why don't you want to have sex with me anymore? Right? What are the results of that? Your partner loses that love and feeling, and maybe they do start to seek romance elsewhere. Maybe not, but do you see where I'm going with this? It's not that you had the thought that they were having an affair and therefore you manifested it. It's that you had the thought they were having an affair, which gave you certain feelings, and those feelings made you act like a fucking psycho, and that's what created the affair, or at least the lack of sex initiation, which is the actual circumstance. Your thoughts create feelings that made you take actions that made your thoughts a self-fulfilling prophecy. And listener Layla, she likes a little tough love with her mindset coaching, so she voted for episode 13, How Not to Feel Sorry for Yourself When It's Hard, where I talk about the fact that when people are under stress, they will often go into victim mode or villain mode. Here's an outtake from that episode. Victim mode is where I naturally go under stress. My husband, he will go to villain. My younger son, Buddy, will go to victim, and my older son, Felix, will go to villain. So this is what this looks like. If our car broke down and we were trying to make the ferry, we live on an island, so making the ferry is like a really common high stress family situation. So if our car broke down and we're stuck on the side of the road with no cell signal, then I would be like, I can't believe this happened to us. And now if we miss the ferry, we're never going to be able to do this. And then that's going to happen. And wah. My husband would go into villain. He'd blame. He'd be like, this stupid car, they don't make cars like they used to. And I can't believe the mechanic missed this. And damn hippies blocking them from building a cell phone tower. So I can't just make a phone call like a normal person in the 21st century. And then my son Buddy would be like, what's going to happen to us? And victim. And then Felix would be like, great. And I don't even have my tablet charged because Buddy forgot to plug it in. He'd find a way to blame his brother. Villain. Listener Nadia really liked episode 49, where I talked to Anna Runkle, the crappy childhood fairy, and especially the part where she says this.
So the funny thing about dysregulation is that for a lot of people, talking about trauma, it turns out, can activate dysregulation. So the opposite of what, everything that we were told to do, like go talk to somebody, get some professional help. If they're using just conventional talk therapy, it could be making the problem worse.
And Hannah loved episode 25 with Chris Bailey on how to calm your mind. This part feels especially relevant today. How do we make sure that our ambitions have boundaries that lead to personal growth and not just burnout and constant dissatisfaction?
Yeah, that's such a good question, because the pursuit of more, we see it in various people, can be a very slippery slope, where the idea of more is self-reinforcing. First of all, it's constructed on dopamine. And so when we obtain more of what we already have, we get a hit of dopamine, which is a neurochemical that leads us to feel as though pleasure is right around the corner, but doesn't necessarily lead us to pleasure in and of itself. And so it's fascinating because we feel kind of like we're on a treadmill constantly chasing the next hit, whether in the form of more accomplishment or more of anything really, or stimulation. And so this was something that I found early on, is creating boundaries around this pursuit of more is incredibly helpful, not only for productivity, but also for happiness. I just call them my productivity hours. And so at the start of the day, I choose how many productivity hours I'll have and when they'll occur. So mind you, have a lot of autonomy. So, your hours might be determined by somebody else, like between the hours of 9 to 5, maybe 1 hour afterward for connecting in the evening, for example. And essentially, these are the hours in which you care about accomplishment, where you care about reaching the goals that you set. You care about, just how productive you are in these hours. And you get to also, by the way, compartmentalize the chronic stress that's associated with work when you compartmentalize things into these hours. But essentially, that idea of chronic stress not having an end in sight, it turns that chronic stress of work, when we engage with it repeatedly, into acute stress, because we know there's an end to these productivity hours every day. So we have the deadline effect, we have the end in sight, and we get to balance this striving for more of the various currencies in our life, to savoring what we have, to reflecting on our values, to living more in accordance with them. And so it's a simple strategy, but it lets us strike that balance between striving and savoring that I think is so critical. And the way that I like to set goals within these hours, my favorite ritual is the rule of 3. And so, there's a lot of rituals for planning out our day and whatnot. But the one that I've found, and I've been researching productivity for quite some time now, and I've written a few books about the topic as well. So the best one, the stickiest one I found, is the rule of 3. And it goes like this. At the start of the day, you fast forward to the end of the day in your head, and you ask yourself, by the time this day is done, what 3 main things will I want to have accomplished? And that's it. And you can only choose 3. And so you have to choose, in addition to what you want to accomplish, everything that you don't prioritize. And so you really have to step back and go to basics, go to the essentials, and decide what's important on a daily basis. And it works because there's actual science behind how we think in 3s. We naturally chunk things together into 3s by default.
And the last little trip down memory lane, if you will indulge me, I was so touched to see that listener Aurelia mentioned the desk apple story. This is the only time my husband Dylan has made an appearance on the show so far. And Aurelia said that it was life-changing for her. Here's that story now.
Okay, the desk apple story. So this is grade 2 or grade 3. And one day I had an apple in my lunch and had a bruise, and I just didn't want to eat it. And I didn't want to take it home because I get in trouble for not eating all my lunch. So into the back of my desk it went, the old-fashioned desk where you put all your stuff in the little metal desk. And the weekend went by, came back to school on Monday and put my books in, and boof, the apple was there. And I thought, oh, well, I'll just leave it for now, get it later. And didn't. So a couple days went by and I smushed my books into it some more, but it was a little more smushy. So I went and got some of those brown paper towels from the dispenser in the back of the classroom and covered it up. And I repeated that probably for most of a week, just layering on the paper towels to deal with this, slowly fermenting, composting apple in my desk instead of just scooping it out and dealing with it. And eventually, a few days later, my teacher noticed the smell and the flies and pulled me aside and had a word with me about this science project in my desk, which wasn't going to receive a passing grade. And she helps me clean it up. And even though I was freaked out and embarrassed and, it really wasn't the nightmare I thought it was going to be, and we dealt with it. But I sure had created one heck of a mess by putting it off for, 3 weeks. And that is the desk apple story.
So, my friend, if you have a goal like starting a podcast, writing a book, starting a business, getting your real estate license, getting in amazing shape, and getting started has become a bit of a desk apple for you, I was once exactly where you were sitting. Do you know how freaking long I talked about starting a podcast before I just shut up and did it? 100 episodes later, I just want to encourage you with all my heart, just deal with your desk apple and do it already. You never know what kind of impact you might have on other people or yourself. Just get going. In the words of Anne Lamott's dad, just take it bird by bird, buddy. Bird by bird. Hey, dude, thanks for listening. If you like this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you can get the next one. And by the way, if you rate and review this podcast, it really helps me get found by other people who need some goals, grit, and some woo-woo shit. And be sure to connect and DM me at Una Duncan on Instagram and let me know what you thought of the episode. Chat soon.